and it's a really exciting thing to be part of. There is this sense, Eric, in his talk, he had a picture of the hype curve.
So could you please maybe tell us more about yourself, your name, where you're from, and what you make?
Okay, my name's Eben. My name's Eben Upton. I live in the UK. I live in Cambridge in the UK, and I run an organisation. I founded an organisation called the Raspberry Pi Foundation, and I now run Raspberry Pi Limited, which is the bit of Raspberry Pi that builds computers and manages the brand and runs the community that's grown up around our product.
Okay, so what is your interpretation towards the theme of this year's event? So to be very specific, where do you think where the makers are? And what kind of roles you think the makers should play in driving innovation and technology advancements in traditional industries?
Well, to a first approximation, the makers are everywhere. I mean, this is the thing that we've learned doing Raspberry Pi over the course of 10 or 15 years, is that the makers are really everywhere. Who is buying, where do we sell Raspberry Pis? We make almost every Raspberry Pi today in the UK, but we sell 90 to 95% of them abroad, and that's spread very, very evenly over the world. And so, we found that, it doesn't matter whether I am in the UK or whether I go to New York or San Francisco or Los Angeles or Shenzhen or Nairobi or Accra. It doesn't really matter where I go. I meet the same kinds of people, right? This movement, I guess, which is maybe about 20 years old, which comes out, I guess, I was talking to Eric Pan from Seed earlier, and he was identifying the start of this movement as being the first fab lab at MIT on the East Coast of the United States. This movement that started in Boston is now everywhere. It's now very uniformly distributed around the world. I guess, how can makers help? The thing that's always impressed me when I interact with the maker community is this idea of not waiting for permission. There is a traditional way to do engineering, right? There's a traditional way to do engineering where you basically wait for your boss to tell you that you can do some engineering, right? You join a large organization and you get involved in an existing program or a new program in a large organization and you do some engineering. I guess the central realization of the maker movement is that technology, particularly computer and communications technology, has now advanced to a level where enormous capabilities are in the hands of individuals. And that once you have these enormous capabilities in your hands, you don't need to wait for permission. You can look around you. You can look at the problems you have in your own life, the challenges you have in your own life. You can look at the challenges and problems in your community. You can look at the challenges and problems that confront us, and there are lots of them that confront us all around the world. And you can say, what can I do myself to try to solve my problem or my community's problem or the world's problem? And that's super exciting, right? So the makers are everywhere. They're solving local, personal, local or global problems from everywhere. And it's a really exciting thing to be part of. There is this sense, Eric, in his talk, he had a picture of the hype curve. And I thought it was a little bit sad because he kind of put the hype, this idea that movements, technologies, they go through a phase of enormous optimism at first, and then there's a slough of despond, a trough of despondency for a while, until you start to see sort of genuine impact and growth. And I think he located us towards the bottom of the trough of despond, that maybe some of the hype and the enthusiasm that surrounded the maker movement 10 years ago has abated a little bit now. Perhaps we're particularly in the aftermath of the pandemic and the supply chain crisis, maybe we're in a moment where we're thinking, what is the maker movement for? I think I would have put us further up now. I think that perhaps that trough actually happened around about the same time as the pandemic. And I think where we are now, particularly as we recover from the supply chain crisis, we're in a place where we really can now point to lots of places where the maker movement is making a difference in the world. And I think we're in that period of slow, steady, well, not so slow sometimes, but certainly steady growth and impact.
Thanks for that. So as a speaker today, what's your impression towards this Maker Faire event?
I think it's wonderful. I love to come here. I love somebody asked me, what do I think is the distinctive, the distinctive property of sort of China and of the Shenzhen community. And I think the thing that I always come to is speed. is the idea of speed and the idea of characteristic time scale here. That this is a place where the time scale is measured in days and weeks, not weeks and months or months and years. It's a sort of extreme version of that idea of not waiting for permission. You know, it's like, what happens if you take the idea of not waiting for permission to its logical extreme? And I think this Maker Faire, I've been going to a lot of Maker Fairs, like a lot of people talk about revenge travel. After the pandemic, revenge travel. I didn't get to travel for a while, so I'm going to do some revenge travel. I've been doing a lot of revenge travel, and I've been going to a lot of Maker Fairs. And they're all different. That's the fascinating thing about them, is they're all different. Some of them are more very maker-focused, some of them are more Maker Pro, or even slightly corporate-focused. I think what I've seen so far here today is that sense of speed. Is just that sense of speed and of distributed innovation, and also of a very multinational audience, right? You know, you see, there's an enormous number of people, not just Chinese people here, but people who've come to Shenzhen drawn in by that ethos that they find very attractive.
In your opinion, like, how does this event contribute to the maker community?
I think it contributes. Obviously, it gives all Maker Fairs give the local maker community a point of focus, right? A point of focus, an opportunity to network within the local community, and an opportunity to demonstrate the work that they've done, the individuals have done. It's enormously motivating having a community of like-minded people who you can prove that just because you're tinkering away in the shed and you never see anyone else, actually, once you come to an event like this, you realize, actually, I'm not alone. There are many people like me. So that's really important. I think the service that we're talking a little bit actually about Africa just now, and about the way in which that we have a challenge. I say the makers are everywhere, but of course they're not everywhere, right? You know, they're not everywhere in the same numbers. One thing that really struck me, I had a wonderful trip to Ghana and Kenya last year with Mike Buffum and Ken Akolo, one thing that really struck me there, we went to an agritech company. We saw an agritech company in Accra in Ghana, and they'd built a robot for planting seeds. And it had a motherboard in that had some Raspberry Pi technology. It had the RP2040 microcontroller, but it's quite a complicated motor driver motherboard. And I said to them, where did you get that made? And they said, JLC. Where does anyone get anything made, right? JLC PCB, right? There's a wonderful opportunity. Where we are here today is somehow at the center of distributed innovation around the world, and is at the center of providing communities in places like Ghana, which you would not necessarily, which maybe a Western company might not traditionally consider to be a target market. There's an opportunity for companies here to really to take all of this work that we've done together, all of these innovations, all of these capabilities, all of this excitement, and take it and get it to everybody, get it to every last person on the planet, and provide those capabilities to places which often would be overlooked. Mike tells this wonderful story. When we went to Ghana and Kenya, and when I was in Kenya with him, he told this, tells this story, and he says he'd been in roles in semiconductor distribution for 30 years, senior roles, and all of those jobs had the word global in the job title. The first time he went to Africa was January last year. Right. Okay. The wonderful thing about the Shenzhen community is it's blind to where you are. It will help you. It will serve you regardless of where you are in the world. And so I think there are some wonderful specific opportunities associated with the maker movement in Shenzhen.
Thank you for that. So do we have any suggestion or feedback for Maker Faire in the future?
Keep going. Keep going. Yeah, well, no, keep going. You know, we are in the Slough of Despond. We are in the, we are apparently at the bottom of the hype curve. Keep going. I mean, that's the lesson, isn't it? I said I've been going to a lot of Maker Fairs. I went to Maker Faire Bay Area last month. Yeah, I went to Maker Faire Bay Area last month. There was no Maker Faire Bay Area for a long time, right? It was the biggest Maker Faire in the world, and then it all went wrong. Right? And now there's a Maker Faire in the Bay Area again. People, we persist, right? And we don't always persist. It's not always the same organization that persists. What's lovely about that is it is Dale, right? It is Dale doing Maker Faire in the Bay Area just as he did before. But it's not always the same organization. The wonderful thing about the fact that this is a movement, not a company, is that individual bits of that movement may rise and fall, but we keep going, right? So that's you know, we've had a weird few years, right? It's been strange. I mean, I hope never to live through something like that again, right? Either of them, the pandemic or the supply chain crisis. They were both, I know one caused the other, but they were both different events and neither of them was very nice, right? So I hope never to live through something like that. I hope never to be separated from the maker community. It was illegal for me to go and hang out with, I talk about the value of getting out of your garage and going and realizing there are like-minded people like you, not just in your own community or your own country, but around the world. It was illegal for me to go and do that, right? It was a thing that was taken away from me. So look, we've gone through a tough time, but we're still here. We're still moving forward. It's good, right?
Okay, so the last question for you. Where and what you are heading and aiming next?
Where am I aiming? Look, we want to be helpful, right? I mean, what's happened at Raspberry Pi? We started shipping Raspberry Pi 5. It's about 3 times as fast as Raspberry Pi 4. It's about 150 times as fast as a Raspberry Pi 1, right? Okay, so we keep pushing our platform forward. What else have we done recently? Well, we've started making semiconductors. So we have the RP2040 microcontroller. We have the RP1. That's unlikely to be the last microcontroller you see from us. And we have the RP1 chip. So Raspberry Pi 5 is the first Raspberry Pi to have first-party silicon on, to have our own silicon on board. So we're doing huge amounts of innovation at Raspberry Pi. Why are we doing huge amounts of innovation? We're doing huge amounts of innovation because we want to be helpful to everyone and particularly to this community, right? What do we want to do? We want to make, what am I proudest of the pandemic era? We launched RP2040 in January of 2021, and we kept maker businesses alive who couldn't get access to traditional, who could not buy an STM32 or a SAMD21 or an NXP something. We kept these, we kept these businesses alive when they would have gone to the wall. We just want to be helpful. We want to make the computational underpinning, the substrate that all of these individual makers, because there's nothing wrong with being an individual maker who doesn't make a business out of it. We want to provide that substrate for individual makers. We want to provide that substrate for makers who want to take their passion project and turn it into a business. We want to be of service. So I think that's probably the direction we're going in. And we sometimes say if someone adds 2 numbers together, we want them to do it on a Raspberry Pi platform. That's the kind of the guiding light for us. We are the computer company. We are the strap line on our corporate presentations now says computing for everyone. We really do want to provide computing for everyone. So that's the direction. We're a tiny way. I've been doing this for 15 years. We incorporated the Raspberry Pi Foundation almost exactly 15 years ago to the day. We've been shipping Raspberry Pi. People have known about Raspberry Pi for 12 years. We've been shipping Raspberry Pi for 11 years. We've done 7 generations of the Raspberry Pi core platform. We've done some silicon. We're going to do more silicon. What's amazing to me about Raspberry Pi is that it's still exciting for me, and there is still a sense that we are at the very bottom of that curve. Right, I don't think there is a hype curve. I think it's an exponential, pure exponential curve. We are still right at the bottom of that curve, even 10, 11, 12, 15 years in. So that's where we're going, up. But even if we don't go up, right, the movement will go up. That's the important thing.
Right. So basically nothing really changed. I guess that's the initial mission you had when you established this.
I think the thing that's changed, there's been a change of almost all change at Raspberry Pi is quantitative change, not qualitative change, right? You look at a Raspberry Pi 5 today, the only qualitative difference, the only new feature in that platform versus Raspberry Pi 1 is wireless. Other than that, it's just more memory, more processing power, more I/O bandwidth. Everything else turn up. Everything's just turned up, right? Quantitative, not qualitative change. You look at the foundation. The foundation started off trying to get 100, 200 computers, maybe 1,000 computers, into the hands of 1,000 children in the UK, so that an extra 100 children would apply to Cambridge to study computer science, so that we'd have a little bit more margin for error. We could be a little more selective in our recruitment, right? we've succeeded beyond our wildest dreams in that space. But all that happens when you succeed beyond your wildest dreams is you just move the boundaries of the box out. So you stop caring about Cambridge and you start caring about every university in the UK. You stop caring about the UK, you start caring about all developed world countries that speak English. Then you start thinking all developed world countries, then you think all developing countries, and the box just gets bigger. That's not, as you say, nothing's changed, only the numbers, and only by 2, 3, 4, 5 orders of magnitude. Nothing's changed.
Thank you very much, Eben.
Thank you very much indeed.